You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
All right, so let me just introduce you real quick. This is Bryan Buckley, and we've had Bryan on before, and he is with the help me out here, Hellman.
Hellman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Hellman Valley Growers Company.
Thank you so much. My stutter really just popped out like a little boner.
No problem.
Dude. Oh my God. There's this comedian. Nice to pair this together. He was like, could you imagine being pulled over by a cop that had a stutter and you have a stutter too? That would be the worst. Yeah, it was really good stuff. All right. So we have Bryan Buckley, and today I wanted to catch up with him because he just got a new position with the San Diego Chamber of Commerce, Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. And I just wanted to catch up with you, bro, because I always see, you guys got new products and you guys have great events. And for veterans to get a hold of the product that you guys make and distribute, I just want to always, touch base back and be like, hey, yeah, no, this shit is still fucking amazing, guys. Like, P.S., they have events and they got things. And now Bryan's a Chamber of Commerce person. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Really meeting some great people here in California. And, I got asked to be part of the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and was doing that for about a year. And then they asked me if I would be interested in the chairman role, which is awesome because I get to work with the National Cannabis Chamber of Commerce board. And we got some really great initiatives. One thing we're looking at doing is starting a veteran committee nationwide where I'll chair that one and, help out veterans who have questions about cannabis or some veterans who are interested in getting into the cannabis community, and just kind of help with that whole process. And, on top of what we're doing with our nonprofit Battle Brothers Foundation, where we're helping veterans transition out of military life, it just gives us a good opportunity to maybe talk with some people who might be, not just saying, hey, I want to get into cannabis, but they also might just be struggling in civilian life and seeing, different ways we can kind of help guide them on a path to, go live that American dream they fought so hard to defend.
Nice. And I'm so happy that you brought that up. It was on my notes for Battle Brothers because to me, that's something that we've hit on before. Is it's not always just cannabis. I know I talk about cannabis a lot. Even when I'm not talking about cannabis on a show, I'll be talking to somebody about psychedelics. That's been a really great conversation lately. Or even just like you were saying, how do we help each other? One of our previous guests, Jared Napier, brought it up. A lot of the veteran community we have infighting, and there's a lot of hesitancy to reach out. And I think that has a lot to do with the culture and, just the different types of things that we may be either A, exposed to, or B, how we were raised, or C, our culture and identity on how to ask for help. But I found that really just a positive message last time we talked about Battle Brothers. And how's that going?
It's going really great. We're bringing on some really awesome people onto our advisory council. I got former military officers. I got doctors from Stanford. I got some people who are just really passionate about helping veterans. And we're having a really good time with it. We're really building up to get some more events going. We're actually going to hold here in California an SB 34 event where we're able to donate cannabis products to veterans free of charge. It goes through our track and trace system. You don't have to pay a tax or anything on them. And we're going to be doing that on March 11th at the Gelato Dispensary in Lake Elsinore. It's a Saturday. But they'll be able to come by and get some great Hellman Valley product free of charge. And we're also going to have some food trucks and music and some media and all that stuff out there, and try to just kind of really build a nice veteran community in the Lake Elsinore area. And we're actually going to do a nice event for Battle Brothers Foundation with the San Diego Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, looking like the end of June 29th. It'll be around there. And we're going to kind of gear it more towards, like veterans and actually athletes who might be somewhat canna curious. And I'm going to hold a Zoom call a couple days before and just kind of have a conversation. We're pretty close to confirming this former NFL player who will be joining us as well. and just kind of have those conversations, and then invite them to come to an in-person event, and we'll hold a panel and kind of do more of a Q&A type thing there. Just to kind of, again, start building that veteran community, build awareness of what Battle Brothers does, not just on the cannabis side, but on a more holistic approach. And, we got a lot of fun things that'll be happening in the summer with both Battle Brothers and Helmet Valley.
Dude, that is just absolutely awesome. That's dope.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up, NFL players and athletes in general. Of course, with CTE, right? And also traumatic brain injuries. Even I'm not sure like how far PTSD really transitions or transcends into the NFL. I guarantee it has a lot to do with identity, a lot of transitional issues, especially after playing the game for so long. Like I played football growing up, and it wasn't the greatest thing having to stop playing. And same thing with wrestling. You when you stop wrestling, it's a part of you. It's a part of the muscle. Your self isn't working like the way you used to. And I've noticed it a lot more, even when I'm just rolling on the mat with my boys here at home, to keep that brain or muscles fresh. You gotta use it. You gotta just kind of go ahead and use it. So when you bring up the word "Canna Curious," now, how did you come with that up? Because that was just like, I'm like, bro, that's a great way of explaining a lot of things.
Yeah, I don't know if I picked that up through osmosis. I kind of just said it during one of our chamber meetings where it just kind of came out and people were like, oh, yeah, because you have a lot of people who are intrigued by it. I mean, you're hearing more and more people talk openly, not just about cannabis, but also psychedelics, and seeing the upside potential they might have. So I just want to kind of, break this stigma a little bit, because, these are proud people, and, no one likes to go into a situation maybe you don't know what you're doing or what questions to ask. And you can walk into a dispensary and, I don't know how many brands there are in California, but you could walk into some of these things and just see colors everywhere and just be overwhelmed. Like, I don't know, edible and a vape and a pre-roll and there's flower, and what do I do? So maybe just kind of like open it up to like, hey, these are some of the routines I've adopted. This is some of the things that have helped me, and these are the results. And just kind of be there for them to, just answer some questions and see if it is the right choice for them. Because I'm always very clear with everyone. I'm like, cannabis isn't for everyone, but if it makes sense, it should be something you utilize. And, like everything, go slow, try it out and see what it does. And if it's not working for you, okay, there might be something else out there. And if it does, great.
Now, do you notice that, and I've had a lot of conversation about all kinds of cannabis, low THC, higher CBD, or no THC. I shouldn't say no THC. I don't think there's a plant that exists with no THC.
Right.
But extremely low dose. I've been talking with a gentleman grower out here, one of our sponsors, Plant Muscle Relief, plug. And I love it. It's great shit. Like, no bullshit, man. Like, we started the season out last year. My neck went out right away. And I'm like looking over my shoulder. My wife's rubbing it on before I started recording. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. And I started mixing the CBD flower with my my own homegrown, which helps me kind of spread the load out. And it saves my ass on having to grow again. But for our listeners, your products have a very large range of both THC and CBD and combinations of, and you guys do both flowers and cartridges. Now, have you noticed that it's harder to get not new customers, but to break through that Canna Curious to that Canna confidence? You know what I'm saying? Like, to really break through, what type of introductory stuff do you guys have available in the lower range, or something, like even if it's a cartridge, what type of products are you guys creating nowadays?
Yeah. So, it's a little more complex kind of an answer.
It's the only kind of questions I ask, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I actually do like this, because it's kind of one of the things that we have seen as brands in terms of what the market wants. So, if you look at what we're going to do with our medical research, the formulations we have are going to be somewhat of a microdosing range that, so for example, the daytime variant, you're really not going to feel the kind of head high, if you will, from the cannabis products, because it's going to be low THC. But what we have learned from the Israelis is you need some THC to get the medicine into your endocannabinoid system to allow it to do its work. And nighttime will be a little different. It'll probably be higher THC because we're seeing veterans do need that kind of head high to, kind of just relax them, put them down and keep them down. But with the way the market is out here in California, everyone has fallen in love with THC percentages. You have some places that are looking for like high 30s, like 40% flower THC, which is like almost impossible for the plant to do. Some would say it is impossible for the plant. And if you don't have that high THC, the stores are like, I don't know if I can move your product. I tell a story. I had a 15% THC pre-roll, and it was the best pre-roll I ever had. It just made me feel great. I was just relaxed. I was just in a good spot, but we couldn't move it because it wasn't over 20%. And I'm like, man, we're all kind of missing the whole full terpene profile and the entourage effect of what the plant can do by itself. Now we got to start cranking it up with a little bit more THC, and that's what people want. It's almost like beer. Like, well, if I go in there and it has 8.7% volume, I'm going to get more drunk, because everyone's like, the higher THC, the more high I'm going to get. That's not necessarily true, but that's what the market's dictating. So, our distillate carts, we'll keep those at 90% or above THC, which the stores love because we're consistent. And we have new, chillums we put out that are now diamond infused flower, which will all come out over 30%. And we have our pre-rolls at 20% at least or up, just so we can move them. But we kind of just had this talk actually last week, and we were saying, we had a 1-to-1, which was great for introductory kind of cannabis for people who are, maybe like, hey, I'm a little bit intimidated. I don't want to get like so high or whatever might happen. But there wasn't much of a demand for a 1-to-1, but we're actually looking at kind of relaunching those because we do think it's such a great introductory type of product to get kind of people into it a little bit more and to feel a little more comfortable and relaxed. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what the market says. We'll do a short run. And if they move and the people like it, we'll keep going. Because at the end of the day, our end state is to get money in so we can take our profits to put forward to fund our research.
No, that is something else that I always find remarkable talking with you, is how well thought out your guys is. I should say, I don't know if it's upstream. There's like this professional model where everybody's like, everything flows upwards to, the benefit of the corporation. I can't remember what the fuck it's called right now. But you guys do that, like, especially with the nonprofit at Battle Brothers, the
Hellman Valley Growers Company.
That one. And then the research that you guys are conducting in coordination with a lot of external, not just in the United States, but external resources. And I'm not saying the United States isn't the best in a lot of things. I'm just saying that some people have their foot deeper into a room that we should have stepped wide into a long time ago. And, to me, that's just remarkable.
Oh, I appreciate that. And it definitely has been an upstream kind of battle. I got one friend named Blue who's runs a show called Cannabis Talk 101, and we were having this conversation last month where we're kind of talking about, like, you go into these stores and you're trying to explain what you're doing and kind of the long play here, and how, by us being victorious in what we're doing, not only are we going to help save the lives of some veterans, but it would be good for the entire cannabis community, because arguably we would make medical cannabis federally legal, and that would open up the door for a lot of things. Now you don't have to get numerous licenses in different states. You might just be able to transport everything out of one state into other states, like a regular commerce would be. But Blue said it best. He's like, I think the cannabis community right now is essentially in like the fast food market, where people just want to get in, they want to eat their food, get fat, get out, and they're done. And meaning like they want to make their money and get going. Yeah. And that's kind of where people are. So, for us, I'm re-looking at our business model where we're trying to do it through the, kind of a mom and pop type of, let's work with dispensaries, let's get our products going, let's get some profits going, we can push that way. Well, the margins in California are so bad with our heavy regulation, our heavy state tax and everything else. You're literally paying anywhere between 40 to 60% tax at retail on cannabis products, which is ridiculous. We're going to look at some other things with, like, getting more aggressive with an apparel line and doing some other alternative revenue streams where we can enhance our margins and hopefully bring in some more profits to do the right thing. Because really just trying to do it just with the cannabis in the stores just has not been as fruitful as we hoped it would be.
Now, is that having to do with strictly taxation and overregulation, or is that something where there's an influx of the black market, or do you think that's something that's contingent due to that?
I think it's kind of all of the above. I mean,
Okay.
you bring up a great part about the illicit market. I mean, we have, with the high taxes and the high regulation, I mean, you could have someone, if you're applying for a cannabis license, you either have to have an APN number or an actual physical site stood up, and you're paying rent on that. And it might take a year for you to get approved through regulations. And you're literally just not making money. You're just paying rent. You're paying all this stuff, and you're trying to hold on until you get through. So that's a tough part. And then when you see the high taxes, that's really daunting to people in the illicit market, where there might be like, well, why would I want to deal with all that where you're barely making any money and you're dealing with all these hassles? It doesn't make sense. And that's where I've had some good friends of mine who were in the legal market, who once were in the, quote unquote, the traditional market back in our 215 days, and they couldn't survive and they had to leave the state because of just how high the taxes are. So that's a real difficult part. And then it's not like when California passed recreational cannabis that it just went statewide and everyone had it. I mean, the municipalities had their say, and some of them don't want it. And then, if there's a gap, something's going to fill the void, and that's with the illicit market. And what's really now, we'll see if there's a paradigm shift here, but apparently the cannabis coming up from Mexico is now, some of it's being laced with fentanyl, which is getting the eyes of the feds right now. They might be a little bit more aggressive on trying to stop illegal cannabis coming up from the southern border and stopping that, because that's killing people. So it's really been difficult. And then at the end of the day, the stores, I mean, they got a business to run, and they might say, hey, listen, this brand has this celebrity backing it and it will move, and it's going to move off our shelf and we're going to make money, and that's what we're here to do. So you kind of have to play with that, where you're like trying to explain, yeah, but we're doing this with veterans and all that. And they could love the story, but they might be like, I don't know if that's going to move volume the way we need it to survive in our store. So it's kind of an all of above little quagmire that we're dealing with out here.
Yeah, you bring that up and it just gets my wheels burning. And I'm like, yeah, you bring up the cartels, you bring up fentanyl. And actually, I just posted something a while ago. It was a heroin addict. He was a homeless dude discussing how when Barack Obama pretty much said, we're not going to pay the Chinese whatever we owe them. I don't know what the hell it was, right? And then dude goes like, yeah, and then all of a sudden, all the heroin just dried up. I was going to say drode up. That ain't a word, but dried up. And then all of a sudden, everything that's hitting the market is fentanyl. And so there's a lot of conversation, a lot of other podcasters. There's this dude named Eddie or something or another from Mexico. He talks about this a lot better, way better than me, and way more in depth. But it's just an intriguing concept of, hey, let's take advantage of a current market necessity, right? And that's something I don't like saying this out loud, but I will give to the cartels. They're really great at pivoting and marketing, like avocados. Okay, like I don't know if people talk about that this much, but like avocados are cheaper and you can get them better, like from Mexico now. Yes, it's horrendous conditions. Yes, it's horrible, all the bad things, but that's what you have in your iPhone batteries and all the different crap, that raw materials. It's all horrible, people. But when you see an opportunity like this, like you're talking about with Research Battle Brother, you have so many hallmark concepts that just hit, that should smack every American in the fucking face and say, buy me. And so like for me to look back on it, I know it is like you're saying, the fast food era, and the mom and pops are struggling, and you find like, oh my God, like I just ran into it the other day. You find strains that are very far and few in between that just hit like they used to. Like you brought up your 15% pre-roll. And I go, yeah, man, like there are definitely better, or I shouldn't say better, but good strains out there that have a great medicinal effect. It may not be like what you're saying, that, 13% beer or, that 9% beer. I like 9% beers, not going to lie, but you only need a couple of them. Right. And so like, I get it. It's the margins game. It's the price game. Like if I'm going to spend $40 on an eighth, yeah, it better be fucking 38,000%, bro. And it better like make me see Jesus. Okay. But for everybody else, it's a issue. It's such a huge fake idea that really gets people to buy shit. And by the end of the day, you know, you're right. There's the celebrities that, you know, tow the boat or pull the line. You know, like I was just bringing up real briefly about white label cannabis nowadays. It's a potential possibility, and it's more plausible because of the licensing and all the different measures you have to take in order to go from strain to product. I should say, like, you know, distribution. Like there's so much I looked into. It's like millions of dollars to get your foot in the door. If you're not doing something dirty, you're not going to make it. Right. And so a lot of these cartels, they've been finding them in national forests and shit. And the poor Hmong people, you know, a lot of people that get trampled through human trafficking. You know, they're stuck in these positions, turning these cartel, whatever they can product to produce, you know, to make and survive and pay off a debt, whatever it may be. But it's honestly all down to the consumers, right? It really does go back to capitalism 101. If there's a supply and demand, if there's a demand and a greater supply, and then if you have better price points, well, that's really what it breaks down to. Like nobody's really testing their weed. Like honestly, if you buy it from, you know, Joe down the street and it has fentanyl in it and you smoke it, one, I don't know how the fuck that's going to work out, because fentanyl, I don't know if you can inhale it like that. Again, I don't know, because I've never used fentanyl besides fentanyl gel patches and lollipops when we were in the military and shit. I never used it, but you know, that was the practice. And man, it just gets me riled up, because to hear that, you know, a lot of people are running into the same issue of kind of swaying consumers back to that mentality of your purchasing power means something. You know what I mean? Being able to contribute to research, and even if it's NFL, even if it's basketball, I don't know if basketball players need it for head injuries, but I guarantee you they need it for their fucking knees. Have you seen how tall those dudes are? They're nothing but knees. Like, oh my God, their knees are the size of like I'm on the shoulder length. And let me just tell you, homie, like, I'm never going to stand next to Shaq and be like, you know what? No, we're eye level. I'm one eye to your eye, one eye, you know what I mean? So, but man, that's a trip. I'm just so glad that you guys are really pushing the issues to, you know, kind of redirect the energy.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're trying to, I mean, it is what it is with politicians. I mean, I think George Carlin was right. They're all kind of on the same team, and, you know, it's amazing how divided we are as a country, but you know, it costs money for them to get into office, and they're going to do what they got to do to take care of themselves. But the one thing I've seen where you can kind of catch the eye of the politician, where you really bring it, it's not anything like a far stretch. You're just talking like, this is a safety issue. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Cannabis is there. Everyone, you know, Americans are near 80% in favor of legal cannabis. But if you kind of have these heavy taxes, heavy regulations, you're just inviting the illicit market to take advantage of that. And to your point, they will not put their products through third-party state testing, and you have no idea what you're putting in your body, which could ultimately lead to your demise. And that's when a politician's like, oh, and it's like, yeah, that's a big deal. So, you know, maybe if you kind of look at things and have a little bit smarter of a tax structure, a little bit smarter regulations, more efficient, you would invite these people in, and we would have a better, more understanding, safe product going out there, and not having anyone, you know, face death. And, you know, especially too here in California, where it's a unique state in the way with when Prop 215 passed in 1996, and it was pretty much a gray bill. I mean, you're setting up a non-profit collective where if you had a certain amount of patients, you could grow a certain amount of product to supply them. And then you were putting it into these kind of nonprofit stores, and they were kind of doing what they were doing. Well, when the Prop 64 passed, you basically had all these kind of quasi-legal shops that are still operating, and consumers won't know if they're going to a legal or an illegal shop. I mean, I asked a city council member up in Los Angeles a couple years ago, I'm like, how many illegal shops do you think you have in the city of Los Angeles? And he's like, man, I got no idea. He's like, but I'll tell you this, there's more of them than there are Starbucks. And that's a problem, where people are still going to these shops or think they're buying the right stuff, and they don't realize they're in an illegal shop. but yet their prices are so much better because guess what? They don't have to pay all the taxes. So people just kind of will go into those places. And then if they get caught, the penalty is not that stiff for them. I'm not sure the exact dollar amount, but the joke is it's like they get busted on a Monday, they open up on a Friday down the street, and they're back up and operating. And
I've
they'll
seen
keep
that
going
happen
for a little while. Yeah.
In my small town, I've seen that happen more than I care to discuss openly, actually, because, you know, pursuing thing after the AMUA Act hit, and I should say it hit, and then it took a little while for the effect, right? But the button up, you know, the buttoning up of a lot of the mom and pop shops, and like you were saying, these non for profit or not for profit, was it dispensaries, like the medical patient standard, right? I honestly believe we lost a big opportunity when we went to the AMUA Act, but under the guise of everybody gets to use it. Yay. You know, and to me, I think that was a bit of oversight on the population, ourselves, of course, like everybody else, right? Every bill that's up for voting, nobody's going to research. Nobody's going to read into it. Nobody's going to look at the lobbyists that are pushing it through. Like, I get it. Everybody's got to, you know, hope to get something going in their Monday through Friday life, right? And when this era, the new era of living standards, thanks to and I can't say it because I've had YouTube videos be taken down already because of the word. The thing that caused a lot of people to become ill, both physically, mentally, and things that created an opportunity for politicians to provide mail-in ballots and whatnot in the past 3 years. Hint, hint. I noticed that it was, I got in trouble. I was like, what the fuck? I can't afford this shit. P.S. I will totally change the way I speak if people let me to continue speak. You know what I mean? As long as I'm allowed to keep saying what the fuck I'm saying, I don't care if I got to wink, nudge, stomp the ground, be like, hint, hint. Like, everybody else knows what the hell I'm talking about. The point being is, I think with the AMUA Act, we kind of did the same thing during that whole 3 years, where it was a good thing in the spirit or the concept of what we sold people on in order to push the thing through, the voting, etc. And now we're looking at it and going, what we did was we created a large funnel, and it's pinpointing straight to the market of which everybody in the industry, at least before AMUA Act, was we don't want it going to large corporations. We don't want it going to, you know, the head honchos, the top hats, you know, the people that already have a dominant hand in the market. Like, when you see proprietors that have, you know, let's say like Coca-Cola, and they're looking into purchasing swaths of just things, and like all the BlackRock people with real estate, when you have large corporate mindset purchasing and dominating an industry, this is going to wedge people out. And that's kind of where I'm like, yeah, you know, of course it did. Duh. It's like the microbrewer back in the day. There was a lot more opportunity to bring up beer. I love beer. The microbrewers back in the day weren't as popular. There were a lot more. And then when the Anheuser-Busch's, the Budweisers, the Coors, all those companies really were able to isolate and target very well. So they followed the Rockefeller, JP Morgan mindset, you know, competition's the enemy. And that's okay, right? Because who the fuck am I to tell a corporation what to do and when to do it, right? What I should say is also, I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to play along, right? I'm not going to buy, I'm not going to purchase, I'm not going to brand, I'm not going to speak about, you know, whatever, et cetera, X, Y, and Z company that dominates, you know, the distribution of this, that, and the third. Much like how alcohol is, you know, it's impossible to get a distribution license, but it's very possible to get a sales license, right? So it's really fucking fascinating. And even brewing on a large scale, you can really dominate water consumption. Mexicali just faced this with, I can't remember, I want to say Estrella Jalisco, was their large company that produces Tecate and Victoria and all this stuff. But they bought out all the water rights for the region, and all the farmers are fucked now. So it's like, this shit has consequences, right? I talk about water rights a lot. It's very important. It's important to know because it's been nonstop raining in our area, San Diego, and we got snow coming into LA, a blizzard fucking warning. But you want to know what? we don't have the infrastructure to capture a drop of this shit. And so it's sad. It's sad because we could be doing things better. To tie it back into the Chamber of Commerce, the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, are these kind of the big talking points that you guys have? Is not only creating a better environment for, you know, the entrepreneurial side, the research side, but also the agricultural side. Is that a big conversation as well?
Yeah, we're absolutely like, and that's one of the points, like, you know, I mentioned earlier about having a veteran committee, and we want to have these, you know, different kind of unique things like a cultivation committee and manufacturing, distribution, dispensary committees. I mean, that's one thing I'm pushing for. And I'll get back to your agriculture side, but even a dispensary committee where I've talked to a couple shops who are very interested. Basically like, hey, let's all work together to make sure we're not having that race to the bottom, that all of a sudden these brands kind of run out. We kind of have to readjust our market. It doesn't, you know, kind of shock anyone at that point. But on agriculture, one of the things, you know, we're really pushing, and it's so, to me, just very ironic, you know, the way we are looking at this whole entire, you know, quote unquote, environmental crisis that we're in. You know, one, we never call out China and India, and they're like, you know, I think as someone said, the 15 most dirtiest states are China and India. Like, that's where a ton of pollution is coming from, and they could care less about the environment. But then you look here in California where, you know, it's so hard to do outdoor grow. So you have to do everything pretty much on an indoor level. And now you're using all that electricity and power, and that's making a bigger carbon footprint than it needs to be, where it's like, hey guys, if you could just loosen some regulations and open up some more outdoor growth, things of that nature, just think how much that would reduce energy costs, reduce the energy grid, because we're going to have those issues here in California. They're already calling it. I mean, heck, as ironic as it sounds, they're telling people to stop buying electric cars because they don't know if the power grid can support them.
That's hilarious.
But these are things where we're all kind of talking about, like, where it's like, you know, I feel like we have children telling us, like, you're bad, the environment, stop driving your car, stop doing this. And you kind of look at them like, are you even thinking this one out all the way? Like, hey, we all get there. We should transition to some alternative power if it makes sense, but we have to get there in a smart and meaningful way. And you guys are kind of like, you know, talking out one side of your mouth and saying something different out the other side of your mouth without realizing it. And those are some of the true issues. And ultimately, who is going to be greatly impacted by that is going to be people in the middle and low income classes, because you're going to ask them to do, you know, you're raising their electricity prices, you're asking all this. There's so many things down the river that are being impacted by your heavy regulation that you don't even realize what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's where you kind of want to say, you know, people in politics, maybe you guys should have some sort of a business knowledge before you guys come out and start making all these kind of outrageous laws.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Like, honestly, you bring up power, you bring up the grid. Something that's happening, we're looking into buying solar panels, and they're literally about to de-incentivize. There you go. Getting solar panels, right? I'm trying my best, people. The solar panels, right, are very expensive. It's like 40 to 60 grand. And if you do a lease, it's actually, when you're done paying it, well over $100,000. If you want battery packs, right? If you want your typical battery pack, I think it's 13 kilowatt. You need 2 or 3 of them for your typical household. That's 1,500 square feet. All right. I'm about to do an interview with a gentleman from our persons that are setting us up. And the reason why is because they're moving this bill, and I can't remember the name of the bill. Y'all can listen in later. I'll iron it out for you. And what it does is it de-incentivizes the buyback power of your energy. So let's say you're in SDG&E territory, PG&E territory. The buyback on your energy is going to be reduced. Instead of having it at value, meaning 100% offset, they're only going to buy it for 25% its value. So there is no getting off the fucking grid, okay? Unless you buy hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of batteries. Maybe, let's say 40. I think one battery is like $20,000 to $30,000. If you were to just gut a Tesla, you'd have more than what these batteries can get you. And I'm not saying doing that, because I'm positive you're not going to get the permits. What I'm saying is, this is a ridiculous way to shoot ourselves in the foot. And when you bring up, you know, energy and the youth, and we're listening to children saying, yeah, you know, He-Man's the best. No, Hercules the best. Well, you're always going to fall to whatever echo chamber you listen to. And that's everybody on the planet. Okay. We always follow the things that we allow ourselves to be, or allow ourselves to be influenced by. Right. And you bring up the celebrities and all that great stuff. All of these great people, you know, I'm not going to say in a pessimistic attitude that everybody's behind it. There's a large cabal. The WF is like Carl Strauss, like blah, blah, blah. You know, nobody will own nothing and everybody will be laughing and having a great time. No, what I'm thinking is, even if that is true, okay, we're choosing to fuck ourselves into a hole that we can't get ourselves out of. Look at the water. When I bring up water, we can't get water in San Diego when all up north, all the fucking water in the world happens. All right. All the deltas and the rivers, and we could pump things this way and that way, and aqueducts and all this wonderful aquifers and money, water. But for electricity, you can't even, this is legitimately happening. They're going to remove the incentive to do it. But for why? Why? Yeah. I thought we were supposed to be moving towards, renewable energy. Well, we are. Well, then why are you removing the incentive behind doing that? And moving into removing gasoline engine cars and little fucking, what do they call, weed eaters that Paco's going to use to fucking literally clean up all of these government buildings. Okay. They're not going to be able to do it now because they got to plug into your fucking electrical grid and sit there for an hour and a half to charge a battery that may be able to work for maybe an hour. So it's really not smart. They even talked about tractors, the battery forklifts and all this stuff. You can use it for about 3.5 hours and it has to charge for 18. The fuck? And that's smart? No. But if we were to utilize all of the resources we can get our hands onto, coal, water, wind, earth, fire, if fucking Captain Planet were to come right now and just be like, with all our powers combined, I am Captain Planet, right? That would be the shit, because that's what we need to do. And especially for America, because I don't know if a lot of people are on the same page, but economically not doing the greatest. And it's because we're over-regulating ourselves. And yes, we need regulations. Look at all the trains being derailed and shit. I get it. I got it, bro. I'm there. I'm with you. But for one thing to work out, let's look at it step by step. You're weighing on it more than I am. What would be the first step if you had the room with, let's say, whoever makes the calls on deregulation? What would be the number one sentence pitch to be like, hey, this is the number one first step?
Wow, the number one first step would probably get me kicked out of the room, but I would remind everyone that, the United States of America is a big corporation, and you need people with business mindsets in political office who understand economics and how to actually run a business, because it really just seems like they're throwing things out there that might sound good on the media or might be a good soundbite. And it really is actually, they're not seeing the full effect of how it goes all the way down the supply chain and impacts everyone. So if I was in with California people and they didn't kick me out of the room after I said that, I would tell them, be like, you need to kind of get your heads out of the spreadsheets here in Sacramento and pick your head up and look at some other states that are having more favorable production with cannabis and having a better cannabis market. Because ultimately that's going to create more jobs and more things can be done, and we can do it in a much better way. But you bring up an amazing point about water. It's like, why are we not looking at water retainment facilities here in San Diego? I mean, we have so much water that just runs off into the ocean every year. Yet we're talking about some other minute things that really is it having an issue, or is it really just impacting less than 1% of the population, but you're putting all your full force into it? It just seems like you have these people who are in these positions of influence, meaning politicians. They maybe go in with the right mindset, but ultimately, and it might be in a passive manner, they get corrupted because it takes money to get elected. And when you get money in donations, unless you're doing grassroots stuff, you owe some favors to people. And it's going to be what benefits them and what benefits their market and what they're trying to do. And they're just playing for themselves at that point. So it kind of really is a little bit of a broken system where you kind of really wish, and it will never happen, that we had some sort of term limits where you could just kind of recycle people and get some people who are actually out in the ground and living it and feeling it and having understanding and kind of go in and share their ideas and maybe making some improvements. I mean, just imagine if you had some people who were deep in cannabis and they got elected, and they could kind of actually have some power and actually influence and do some good things, it could really change the whole market in a whole different positive way, and could really flourish and change people's lives.
You know, you bring that up, and I think of Warren Buffett. I was going to say Jimmy Buffett, but that was the wrong Buffett.
Little Margaritaville.
Oh yeah, go on. No shoes, no shirt, baby. So he said, if you were to get it to where politicians have the incentive of performance, and I'm summarizing this shit. He said it way better. Of course, it's Warren Buffett, right? If you incentivize performance and outcomes. And I'm not even going to say set term limits, because term limits are usually there because of piss poor performances and outcomes. And if you were to be able to hold people accountable for piss poor performances and outcomes, there wouldn't be any issues, especially in politics. And the main reason why is, could you imagine if you voted to restrict X, Y, and Z, and then TUV happened, right? And legislatively, you were accountable and judiciously accountable. Your personal assets, yourself, your own ass can go to jail, right? For piss poor performances. And to kind of, tag onto that, another gentleman produced a meme or a video, a really, I call them both all the wrong things. And what it said was, there's like, of this number, would you think it's the NFL or the NBA? And it says, 43 charges of assault, 400 charges of, delinquent payments. Like 100 people can't even qualify for a credit card. And he goes on to these statistics, and he goes, would you think NFL or NBA? And this sounds a little racist, not going to lie. But at the end of the day, guess what he says? He goes, no, this is Congress. This is the people that are running the country. All right. And we as normal folks, I'm a normal guy. If you have delinquent anythings, it's a pain in the ass. You can't get away from the phone call. You can't get, and in the military, we used to call this a security clearance risk. Okay. So, come on. Like, how could you have people in a position of authority that's literally unchecked, doing things that could, you get, like you said, corrupt very easily. Like a favor for a favor for a favor. By the end of the day, you're knee deep in somebody's pocket. And you're right, to get reelected, you'll move and shift and do things in certain ways. This happened in Monterey, I think in the 70s. And this is why California has such horrible water regulations, was the lobbyist groups and the majority owners of a specific aquifer. And the way this broke down, and all this long story bullshit story long, was they ceased operations of downflow of water, and they would refill their banks, because they call it a bank instead of an aquifer, and sell that to Los Angeles. And Los Angeles would over purchase and had rights to X, Y, and Z. Now that makes sense if Los Angeles was still the orange capital of the country, but it's not, and it hasn't been for quite some time. And even our small town here in Valley Center, to purchase for an acre foot of water, I think it's $1,500. So talking to our sponsor, Nick Care, and talking to a lot of other growers just in the area, because he's CBD, he can grow in San Diego County, which is difficult if you're in an unincorporated area. And like you were saying, it forces you in-house, and it forces the higher electricity bills, etc. It's $1,500 per acre foot of water. And I don't know how many times you got to do that per cycle or per grow, whatever it is, but that just sounds outrageously high, Yeah. Jeez.
Oh yeah. I'm with you. And, some of the points you bring up, it's funny. Like, I've had conversations about, like, kind of tying into like what Warren Buffett's saying, like a performance-based way. I just wonder what would happen if there was a balanced budget amendment that was put forward, and it told people in Congress, you don't get paid unless the budget's balanced, and just see what they do. At that point, they have no choice. Like, you're not going to get your money. You're not going to get your vacation time, all that stuff, unless the budget's balanced. And unfortunately, I think, I'll give a really good writer, and he's a CNN contributor, a guy named Michael Smerconish. He wrote a really interesting article probably like a month or two ago, and it was just talking about how we're getting, not so strong candidates are being elected. And he said, he's like, listen, I can go R and D on all these, but he's like, let's maybe use Herschel Walker as an example. It's like, was he that strong? Was he that qualified? I don't know. Maybe not. What experience did he have and certain things you're looking for? But it's a team sport now in politics that you're just more worried about is there a D or an R at the end of their name, and that's the way you're going to go vote. Even that guy in New York who I think is telling stories about his graduations or schools, or he worked at Goldman Sachs or something, and it wasn't true. And people are going, oh my goodness, I can't believe we allowed someone like that get elected. And I'm like, well, who also lied about their college degrees and what they did in law school is President Biden back in the 80s. He said he had 3 degrees. He didn't. He said he graduated some high rate in his class. He didn't. He was on the bottom half, and he didn't get scholarships to law school. And that's why he got tranched out in the 80s. But no one seemed to care about that when re-election time came up. So
I care.
You're going to kind of, yeah, well, I think we all should care. It's like, and I'm like, I tell people my political party, it's called America. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat. I think you all have your issues. I just kind of want what's best for America. And that's where, I think if you really want to get to the root of how do we solve these problems, people aren't really looking into the issues as much. They might look into an issue that's important to them, but they're not taking a more holistic approach of like what would be better for all of us in terms of like this person goes in, what do they stand for on education, business, this, that, not just maybe your hot topic subject. And then they're going, well, hey, they're a Democrat. Oh, hey, they're a Republican. I'm voting for them just because that's who they are, and I don't want the other side to get someone in there. I mean, it's just that crazy where we're going to keep kind of spinning our wheels, and who knows what happens because, again, you will never defeat the United States of America head on. The only way you can beat America is by dividing us. And I think, going back to China, I think they're playing a long game with us. I think they've manipulated us. And I think they're just having their way with us where we're all more looking inboard at each other versus not seeing everything outside, and we're kind of ripping ourselves apart.
Yeah. And you know what? Bringing up like the whole intelligence side of warfare, right? Read Sun Tzu, The Art of War, listeners. I know you have the majority of you, right? And the reasons why is because there's a lot to learn from all of it. And of course, I'll always throw in the Bible, throw in the Quran, throw in the Bhagavad Gita, throw in the Torah, throw in all the books you could possibly get to learn about people, right? And learn that when you deal with people, if you don't have, I'm not going to say the ignorant word, which is altruism, because that doesn't really exist intrinsically. It may, and I think that's the problem with a lot of our culturalistic differences, of course, from generation to generation, the naivety, the identity, the disillusionment we all go through as we get older, etc. All politicians, they're self-serving. All political parties are self-serving because in all data and retrospect, money makes it work. Okay. So like if you have a guy, there's this, oh my God, I can't remember his name, but he wore a boot on his head. He wore a boot on his head and he ran for presidents like a lot of times. I want to say is like a Megalord Voltamar, Vermin Megalord, some shit like that. Okay. This guy, when you hear him speak, first and foremost, motherfucker's wearing a rain boot on his head. But when you hear him speak, you're like, whoa, bro, like, why can't we get you? Because he will never make money. He will never make people money. And at the end of the day, that's what gets people into into politics, and they become politicians. There's a great group of guys that, just got elected into office. A bunch of them are like either Navy SEALs or special operations dudes. And every single one of them, I really hope, because, I follow Dan Crenshaw, not on any other forum besides Twitter, because I like to poke fun at him when his eyes get crossed. Get it? Joke. But at the point where, you lose a bit of who you're fighting for when you're consumed by your colleagues. Okay. And I mean that because the left and right, they call each other colleagues. You have to fight in a political manner, even though, what's her name? Pelosi would say she wanted to punch somebody in the face, and Trump says he wants to punch, and then Biden's over here, but I'll take him out back, kick his ass. I'm like, bro, no, you won't. 80-year-old man, calm down. But still, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that that's there because it tells you there's passion. And I also love the fact that there's people like you saying, hey, passion aside, we got to have better outcomes. At the end of the day, we got to, if this was a corporation, like you were saying, the United States is a corporation. Let me tell you about the dollar. Okay. In Mexico, it's 17 pesos per dollar. I have not seen that happen in like forever since I've been going to Mexico. Yeah. Been married to my wife for almost 13, 14 years now. And never have I seen the trade value go down to 17. Okay, bro, this pisses me off to my core because that means I can't buy more tacos. All right, the taco ratio to my dollar has gone down, and that's me saying, "Hey, economists, the fuck, bro." P.S.
Yep.
When we were like, I'm not saying who was in office. There was another person in office that understood economy, understood business, understood leverage. And really, I don't like saying his name because I'm just talking about key points of how leadership quality works. Was able to have quality returns of interests. It was 22 plus. Okay. So 22 pesos on the dollar plus. So if you're selling it, I think it was like 22. If you're buying it, it's like 22. So slightly above. Currency people probably know what I'm saying better than I know what I'm saying. Okay. But what I'm saying is when the dollar's dropping, everything in this country is dropping, but that's also power abroad. That's geopolitical power. And, I was just watching Reacher, the TV show on Prime. Really great show. Looking forward to season 2. The whole backstory is economy, this economics. It's about the dollar and how C notes, which are $100 bills, I had to Google that. They are the purchasing power in all black markets to include human trafficking, drugs, you name it, probably political dinners, galas, however you're going to rinse and wash money. I guarantee you there's going to be counterfeits and all this other shit. And that's this whole background on season 1. If I didn't ruin it for you, go ahead and check it out. But dude, I could literally sit here and talk to you about for hours. To move on, because we do have to wrap it up. I have another appointment at 4. Sorry.
You got it.
Dude, I love catching up with you because it's just she's just so fucking spot on. Like the nonprofit, the business, and the research. And P.S., we're getting involved in politics. That's what the Chamber of Commerce really breaks down to. But in genuine leadership politics, because you're the closest to the ground in leadership, seeing what it is in specifics in that area, which is cannabis in San Diego. I've served on the cemetery board, and if you wanted to know how many plots we had, I could tell you, right? But you couldn't ask Jem Disman that, homie. He's a District 5 supervisor. He didn't know how many grave plots Valley Center's got. You got to call me. But for that, I really want to just say thank you for doing that and pulling your resources together on that, and kind of turn it over to you for the last minute on any plugs or sponsors or shout outs that you like to get out.
Oh, wow. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure jumping on a call with you. I really always have a fun time. And really great conversation. This was fun. I would just tell everyone, check out and follow Hellman Valley Growers Company on Instagram at HVG Company. And if you're interested in helping us out and making a donation to Battle Brothers Foundation, you can do so at battlebrothersfoundation.org. And every dollar counts, and it totally makes a difference in a veteran's life. So we just would greatly appreciate any support you guys have there. And besides that, we'll just keep plugging along. It's I always feel like I might have taken off my camis, but I'm still serving our country just in a different capacity. And it's an honor every day to do so.
Rock solid, man. Thank you so much for being on again. And that'll be it, man.
All right. Thank you.
Internet. Hello. License number 4 and then he's a number represent our number 6 because he has me for shit.